Is Resident Evil 2 Remake ever getting a VR update? Resident Evil 2 Remake is already one of the most celebrated survival horror games of all time. Its stunning visuals, nail-biting atmosphere, and engaging gameplay mechanics set a new standard for remakes when it launched in 2019. But what if we could take it a step further? What if we could experience the terror of Raccoon City through the immersive lens of VR? Today, we're diving into why Resident Evil 2 Remake deserves a VR update and how it could reshape the way we experience this classic. Why Resident Evil 2 Remake deserves VR. Okay, first, let's talk about why Resident Evil 2 Remake is the perfect candidate for VR. The game's atmosphere is meticulously crafted. From the creaking floors of the RPD to the chilling growls of zombies echoing in the distance, every detail is designed to immerse you. Imagine standing in the middle of that dark hallway, flashlight in hand, with the sounds of shuffling footsteps closing in. In VR, this wouldn't just be scary, it would be viscerally terrifying. The slow, methodical pace of Resident Evil 2's gameplay also lends itself beautifully to VR. Unlike fast-paced shooters where VR can sometimes feel overwhelming, RE2's deliberate exploration and puzzle solving would shine. Picture physically reaching out to pick up items, manually reloading your weapon during a zombie encounter, or leaning around corners to check for lurking danger. That played a huge part in what made Resident Evil 4 VR so much fun. Features that would translate well to VR. So what features from Resident Evil 2 Remake would translate seamlessly to VR? First, let's talk about the combat. The over-the-shoulder aiming system already feels tight and responsive, but in VR, this could transform into a first-person perspective. Much like Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 7, and Resident Evil 8 VR, think about physically aiming your handgun and approaching a zombie, steadying your hands as it gets closer, or desperately trying to reload while under pressure. The atmosphere that Resident Evil 2 creates, that slower paced, tight corridor feeling, it would translate so well to VR. That brings me to my next point, inventory management. Resident Evil's inventory system is iconic, and in VR, it could become an interactive tactile experience. Just like in Resident Evil 4, imagine opening your inventory with a flick of your wrist, grabbing a healing item, or switching weapons with physical gestures. This could add an extra layer of immersion and even tension during combat scenarios. And then there are the puzzles. Resident Evil 2's puzzles are already engaging, but VR could take them to the next level. Imagine physically interacting with dials, locks, and levers, or closely examining objects in 3D space to uncover clues. The opportunities are endless, and with how well Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 7, and Resident Evil 8 translated to VR, Capcom could do amazing things, transforming Resident Evil 2 into a VR experience. Speaking of which, let's compare Resident Evil 4 VR versus Resident Evil 2 in VR. When Resident Evil 4 got its VR treatment, it was a game changer. The first-person perspective, intuitive controls, and revamped mechanics made it feel like a brand new experience, while staying true to the original. Resident Evil 2 Remake could benefit from a similar approach, but there's potential for even greater immersion. While Resident Evil 4 is more action-focused, RE2 leans heavily into survival horror. This means that the VR experience would amplify the tension and fear in a way RE4 VR couldn't fully achieve. Imagine a tyrant encounter in VR, hearing his heavy footsteps from behind, frantically looking for a place to hide, and feeling your heart pound as he closes in. That is one of the main reasons why I'm really excited, or hoping, that Capcom will take the initiative to create a VR update for Resident Evil 2 Remake. The key difference lies in its pacing. While RE4's fast-paced combat works great for VR, RE2's slower, more deliberate gameplay would allow players to savor the horror and suspense. Both offer incredible possibilities, but RE2's tone and design make it uniquely suited for VR horror fans. The case for a VR update. Okay, so why hasn't Resident Evil 2 Remake received a VR update yet? It's hard to say. Capcom has already ventured into VR with RE7, RE8, and RE4, so they clearly see the value. Maybe it's a question of resources, or maybe they're waiting for the right moment. But one thing is clear, the demand is there. Fans, much like myself, are hungry for a VR experience that lets them relive the terror of RE2 in a whole new way. The groundwork is already laid. The RE engine is VR capable, and Capcom's proven they know how to deliver immersive VR experiences. I'm hoping it's just a matter of time. Resident Evil 2 Remake is a masterpiece that redefines survival horror for a new generation. Bringing it to VR wouldn't just be a gimmick. It would be the ultimate way to experience its tension, atmosphere, and thrills. Capcom, if you're listening, we're ready. Let me know in the comments, would you play Resident Evil 2 Remake in VR? And what features would you want to see? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay safe out there, and happy gaming.